All right, guys, welcome to this page of the notes. Here we go. We're going to get started on our first objective or learning target, which is using algebraic division to divide polynomials. Please notice that in my denominator, I do not have a monomial, right? It is not a single term polynomial. I actually have a binomial, right? I have two terms. And so the division we looked at to start this set of notes isn't going to work. You have no choice here but to go ahead and do the algebraic division. Now it does turn out synthetic division, that second objective, would work for this problem, but we'll talk about that more later. We want to take a look at algebraic division first. Here's the way it's going to work. The first thing you need to do is check to make sure that every power of x is represented. If anybody's missing, you need a placeholder. So here's what I've got. My highest power is x to the third. X to the third, which means that since I have x to the third, I should have an x squared, an x to the first, and an x to the 0. I need all of those powers to be represented, and if I'm missing anybody, I need to put in a placeholder. I have an x to the third, an x to the first, and an x to the 0. Who am I missing? Yeah, I'm missing the x squared. So I do need a placeholder. You will need a placeholder. For x squared. So here's your new problem. Let's rewrite this guy. 3x cubed plus, remember we're going to use a coefficient of 0, 0x squared plus 6x minus 4, all divided by x plus 2. Now every power of x is represented in my problem. 3, 2, 1, 0. Starting with the highest power of x that I was given. All right, now it's time to go ahead and set up our long division. It'll look just like it did when you were in middle school, except now you got variables running around all over the place. So 3x cubed plus 0x squared plus 6x minus 4, my long division symbol, and my x plus 2 goes outside, right? Numerator is your dividend. Denominator is your divisor. We've got our problem set up. The last thing you're going to want is a little spot over here for you to do some side work. And I'll also put this in here just this time for us, just to help us remember the way that it works. We're going to use that 4-step process. Remember, the process is the same. That's why we reviewed how to do long division. So step 1 is to divide. Step 2 is to multiply. Step 3 was to subtract. And step 4 was to bring down. Okay, so I've got my process here from long division back in middle school. We'll follow this same process to now do algebraic division. Step 1, divide. What will you be dividing? It's always exactly the same thing. You will always, always, always take the first term of your dividend, divide it by the first term of your divisor. So over here on the side, I'm going to do 3x squared. That's the first term in my dividend. Sorry, not an x squared. It's an x cubed. And I will divide it by the first term in my divisor. Okay, well, here we go. 3 divided by 1 is just a 3. X cubed divided by x would be x squared. So 3x squared. This is going to be the first term in my quotient. It's what I'm going to write above the long division symbol. But you want to make sure that you get all of the powers lined up into nice, neat columns, right? Since this is an x squared, you're not going to want to write it above an x cubed, right? Because it's not an x cubed, it's an x squared. Since it's an x squared, you're not going to want to write it above an x to the first. It's not an x to the first, it's an x squared. And so now you can see why you need that placeholder, right? If you didn't put this placeholder in here, you'd have an x to the third, an x to the first, and your first term of the quotient is an x squared. Where are you going to put it? Right? Well, now I got this placeholder in here. I got this nice, neat place where I can line up all of my x squareds in a nice, neat column. It'll help you keep from making mistakes if everything is nice and neat and in order. So here's my 3x squared written above my other x squared, right? Just keeps it nice and neat. Divide. Step number 2, we multiply. Now, here's where it's a little different, right? Step 1, we divided by taking the first term of the dividend, dividing by the first term of the divisor. When it comes to multiplying, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You need to multiply your quotient, right? What you got by doing the division by your entire divisor. So it'll be a 3x squared times x, which is going to be a 3x cubed, right? 3x squared times x is 3x cubed. And then you'll need to do 3x squared multiplied by a positive 2. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, so I wind up with plus 6x squared. Again, please notice my powers are all lining up, right? I've got cubes here in this column. I've got squareds here in this column. Everything's nice and neat in columns. Trust me, guys, it's going to make your life way, way easier. This is our first example problem. It's one of the easy ones. They only get more complicated from here. You're going to want to make sure you keep this nice and neat or you will very easily get lost. All right, so nice, neat columns. Make sure you got those placeholders in there to help you keep those columns nice and neat. Step number 3 is subtract. So we're going to go ahead and put our little subtraction bar under there. I'm going to put my subtraction sign out front, but you need to be careful. I have 2 terms here. You're going to need parentheses because you'll have to distribute that minus sign through the parentheses. Don't forget to distribute the minus sign. So here's what I got. 3x cubed minus 3x cubed. Well, yeah, you guessed it. Those guys are going to cancel each other out. You're left with 0, which is awesome. In fact, you should get 0 there every single time. If you wind up with something here other than 0, you done goofed. Go back and figure out what you did wrong. Those guys will always cancel each other out. If you've done it right, they'll always cancel each other out. 0x squared minus 6x squared. Well, that's minus 6x squared. Again, my x squareds are all in this nice, neat column. Step number 4, bring down the next term, which is going to be plus 6x. And now that we have done all 4 steps in my process, I go back to the beginning and start it all over again. So here we go. I will now take the first term in my new reduced polynomial minus 6x squared. I will divide that by the first term in my divisor, x. Well, what do you get? Negative 6. X is canceled, so I wind up with minus 6x. Minus 6x. That'll be the next term in my quotient. Please notice this x is to the first power, so make sure you write that guy over x. Oh, there's my x to the first power, so minus 6x. Look at this. I got all my x's to the first power written here in this nice, neat column. Guys, that'll make your life so much easier. Keep this stuff nice and neat. That way you don't get lost. All right, so that's the divide part. Did that over here in my side work. Multiply. Negative 6x gets multiplied by my entire divisor. So negative 6x times x. Yeah, that's a negative 6x squared. Negative 6x times 2. It's going to be minus 12x. All right, that's the multiply. Now I'm to subtract. Don't forget to put parentheses so you distribute, right? You got to distribute that minus sign to both of those terms. Negative 6x squared minus a negative 6x squared. Add a line, change the sign. So what you wind up with is negative 6x squared plus 6x squared. Hey, those cancel out. They should. If they don't, you messed up. And then add a line, change the sign. So here's what I've got. I've got 6x plus 12x. That's going to be 18x. And step number 4, bring down. Okay, I have now gone through the entire process yet again, so here we go. Back to the beginning, divide. 18x. All right, this is my new reduced polynomial, so I take the first term in my reduced polynomial and divide it by the first term in my divisor. X's cancel, I'm going to be left with an 18, so plus 18. Step number 2, multiply. 18 times x is going to be 18x. 18 times 2 is what? 32. Let's see, did I do that right? Minus hang on, let me make sure I didn't mess up my signs. I didn't, we're good. All right, so you might need I will, let's see here, well, 32. So yeah, so what we'll need to do then, yeah, we'll need to do the 18 times 2, so 36. Let's see here, so plus 36. That brings me to subtract. Don't forget to distribute your minus sign. Those guys are going to cancel each other out because a positive 18x minus 18x is 0. Distribute the minus sign 30, so negative 4. Let's see, minus 36 gives me 40. Okay, I don't have anything left to bring down, so I'm done, right? I've completed the process. So now here's what you're going to do. Your final answer then, let me write my final answer right over here. Your final answer is going to be your quotient, which is 3x squared minus 6x plus 18. And you do, in this case, have a remainder. So here's what you're going to do with your remainder. You're going to take your remainder, whatever it is. In this case, it's a 40, so it'd be plus 40. But you're going to put that remainder over top of your divisor, which in our case was an x plus 2. So there's my final answer. My quotient, which I get by doing the long division process, and then my remainder, which is the little bit that's left over after the division process is completed. So my quotient, and then add, right, that remainder, but put the remainder over top of your divisor. Again, that's just the way that we report our remainders here in Algebra 2. Almost all Algebra 2 textbooks do it the exact same way. Your book definitely does it this way, and so just so that you get the same answers that your book gets, we'll do that. Okay, let's do another one. All right, here we go. Let's get this set up. First, check to make sure that you don't need a placeholder. 2, 1, 0. All of my x's are there. We're all set to just jump right into this. X squared plus 3x minus 40. Put that in the long division symbol, and then I have x minus 5. Step 1 is to divide. X squared divided by x. Well, that's going to leave me with an x, which means I need an x right there. Again, remember, I'm lining up, right? X. This is an x to the first, so it'll go over like x to the first. That's step 1, divide. Step 2 is to multiply. X times x is going to be x squared. X times negative 5 is going to be a minus 5x. That's step 2, multiply. Step 3 is subtract. Don't forget to distribute your minus sign. X squared minus x squared, those guys cancel out. They should always cancel out. If they don't, you made a mistake. Distribute the minus sign, that's now a positive 5x, which means I'm going to have 8x. Bring down the next term and repeat the process. So now my reduced polynomial, my first term is 8x. I'm going to divide that by the first term of my divisor, which is x. X is canceled, leaves me with an 8, so I have plus 8. Okay, 8 times x is going to be 8x. 8 times a negative 5 is going to be a minus 40. Subtract, don't forget to distribute the minus sign. 8x minus 8x, those guys cancel each other out. Negative 40 minus a minus 40, you change the sign on this 40, so it would be minus 40 plus 40. Hey, look at that. Those also cancel each other out, and awesome, we're left with a remainder of 0. Now, remember, a remainder of 0 just simply means that your dividend is evenly divisible by the divisor. It means they go into each other an even number of times. So, your final answer is x plus 8. There is no remainder. Right? Again, we're just using that 4-step process. You keep repeating it until you run out of things to bring down. Let's go ahead and try a couple more. Now that we kind of got the idea. Oh, hey, we've seen this before. This is just that kind of awkward way of just writing a division, but so that it maybe doesn't look like division. So we'll just simply go ahead and take care of that. Also, x squared plus 7x minus 30 all over x minus 3. Also, I need to make sure that I have, I don't need any placeholders. X squared, x to the first, x to the 0. Okay, so I have everybody, 2, 1, 0. Don't need any placeholders. We're all set to go ahead and just set up our division. So x squared plus 7x minus 30. All right, step 1 is to divide. X squared divided by x, which is going to leave me with an x. Make sure that x gets, yep, there we go. Now my x's are lined up. Multiply is step 2. X times x is x squared. X times a negative 3 minus 3x. Step number 3 is to subtract. Don't forget your parentheses, so you distribute that minus sign. The first terms cancel each other out. Negative times negative is going to be positive. So 7x plus 3x is going to be 10x. And step number 4, bring down. Okay, now that I've done step 4, we go back to the beginning and start all over again. My reduced polynomial, the first term is a 10x. Divided by first term of my divisor, which is an x. Well, the x's cancel each other out, and I'm left with a 10, so I have plus 10. And now we go to step number 2, which is multiply. 10 times x, x. 10 times a negative 3 is going to be a minus 30. Step number 3 is to subtract. Don't forget your parentheses so that you remember to distribute. And look at that. All goes away again. You're left with an answer of x plus 10. Again, a remainder of 0 just simply means that your numerator and your denominator, your dividend and your divisor are evenly divisible. They divide out an even number of times with no remainder left over. All right, one more here for you before we try something else. Let's go ahead and do this one. Check and see if you need a placeholder. 2, 1, 0. I don't need any placeholders, so we're all set to set this guy up. All right, step 1 is to divide. X squared divided by x is going to be equal to an x. Times x is x squared. X times a negative 1 is going to be a minus x. Subtract. Those cancel each other out. And I have a negative 13x plus x, so how about a minus 12x? Bring down, step number 4, right? Step number 4 is to bring down, so I bring down that last guy. And now I repeat my process. Minus 12x divided by x gives me negative 12. That negative 12 is the next term in my quotient, and we do step number 2, multiply. Negative 12 times x, and a negative 12 times a negative 1 is going to be a positive 12. Well, look at that. Once again, evenly divisible by one another. Okay, so hopefully at this point you're kind of getting the feel for the way that these are going to go. We're going to try